been a few years, but I am talking once again to Dana Stabanow. Stabanow.
Stabanow.
Jesus God. Stabanow. I'm talking to Dana Stabanow. I just get, if I get it wrong, I get it wrong. How are you doing, Dana?
I'm great. It's great to be talking to you again, William. I remember we had fun last time.
We did, and it should be easy for me to remember your name. Do you know why? Because you write crime and people are stabbed. I mean, I can make that connection. Has no one ever made that connection for you?
Actually, in college, when I reported for the school newspaper at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, people would call me Dan Stab, Ace Daily Reporter. Wow. And I wasn't even writing crime fiction at that time.
It was in the works. All right. So Dana is an Alaskan native who I think when I interviewed you, this was a bunch of years ago, it was for the current the series that Not the Ones Dead. That is the that's the Kate Shugak mm-hmm. series, which is your longest. Is it the one you're best known for? Would you say at this point?
Yeah. Yes, it's the one I'm best known for. This is the 23rd book in the series, and
wow. Jesus, yes. Wow. Yeah, because I remember I remember read that book, really enjoyed it, and so 23rd. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I was thinking about that's a long time to be writing about the same character.
You're right about that. And I'm sure I said during my last interview, because I think I say it in every interview I give, that I'm very conscious of writers who've gone too long with the series and the characters have gone stale on them and they're bored writing it, and you can tell, which means you're going to be bored reading it. And I've always been terrified that would happen with the Kate Shugak series. So I have made it a policy to write other things in between. The Kate Shugak novels. As soon as I was financially able to do that, I started staggering the titles in the series with other books. I mean, I did that from the beginning because I was writing science fiction when I first started out, but I'm even more conscious of it now.
And as I recall, you had an unusual upbringing. Maybe not unusual because Alaska is such an odd place. There really is no other place like it in the country, I think, in the US at least. Maybe it wasn't unusual for Alaska, or was it even unusual for that state?
I don't know. Yeah, you're talking to the wrong person. I mean, when you're a kid, your life is just your life. I grew up on a boat, and it was off and on. We lived on the boat off and on for 5 years. Sometimes we would winter ashore, sometimes we'd stay on the boat. And, mostly I wanted to be like all my friends in school who were living on shore. And
right.
And I didn't particularly like having to leave in the summertime to go pick up fish at the fishing grounds. And I didn't particularly love the winter that we went trapping instead of staying. And then my mom had to homeschool me. And it was, but when you're a kid, that's just whatever is normal. And
that's so true.
Looking back, I can see, okay, maybe it was a little bit different.
But, it's interesting when I think about, when you describe that upbringing, the writer's life, the decision to be a writer is, that it comes loaded with a little bit of baggage in terms of money and just, it can seem impractical. And there's something about the wilderness of Alaska, which is like, look, we got to survive here. We had a trap here. It's not a refined, you don't have a lot of room for luxuries, and writing and reading can seem like a luxury.
And yet Alaska has given voice to many, many, many fine writers.
Why do you think that?
The least. There's something in the culture, there's something in the landscape, there's something in the way life it is lived here. I love your choice of the word impractical, because I think you could apply that to writing as a whole. Anyone who writes for a living, I think, is nuts. Because it's just we're going to be incredibly lucky if we make enough money to live on. That's just timing and luck are everything there. Skill is, I believe, the least of it. Skill is a good thing to have too. If you can tell a story, that's, you got to have that if you're going to be able to have the luck to break out. But it is, I mean, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said to me, you know, I've always wanted to write a book, I'd be a rich woman. I'd never have to write another word,
Yeah.
because I don't think anybody really understands what we do. I'm not sure we understand when we start out. And I think it takes a real leap of faith combined with an absolutely stubborn determination that you're not going to fail to
Yeah.
get where you're going. And I think fewer people have that than not.
Yeah, well, I always say to my, because I teach a lot of writers and I talk about the creative process with a lot of people, and there's a lot to be said about the mindset necessary to do the creative life, which is really what we're talking about in writing one example. And there isn't, the one thing about it is there's a lot of careers that you can go and learn to do in college, or some version of it in college, and there's, there are places you then go to apprentice at it and get paid along the way. And for writing, there is nothing like that. I mean, you can go get an MFA, but that doesn't really
That's no
prepare you.
guarantee of anything.
Nothing, nothing. And so there's so little guarantees in it that I think it scares a lot of people off. I'm sure you've met a lot of people who were lawyers while they were writing their first book, and doctors while there's a ton of those people out there.
It helps if you have a day job. Yes.
Oh yeah. Did you do journalism? I can't remember. Was it journalism for you first? Was that your first day job?
My undergraduate degree was in journalism, but the way Alaska was when I got my degree in 1973 was they were just starting construction on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. And the highest paying journalism job I could find was as a copy editor at the Anchorage Times for, I think it was like $800 a month. And you couldn't even rent an apartment on the take home for that. So I followed the herd and went to work for the oil companies on the pipeline and in Prudhoe Bay. And then when I got done with that in the early 80s, I decided, okay, time to fish or cut bait, go back to school. I got my master's degree in MFA.
Yeah.
And started writing books.
Wow. And so when you wrote the first in this series, the Kate Shugak series, did you anticipate it being a series, or did you say, well, I really like this character? And I know you didn't think you'd write 23, but if you're writing in crime, it's not unusual to think series. Like that's often the way it goes, right?
The first Kate Shugak novel, I wrote it because, first of all, because I needed a break. It was a writing exercise in between the second and third science fiction novels. I was writing a science fiction trilogy at the time. And I have no background in the hard sciences. So I was really exhausted from the research that I was doing, trying to have like a modicum of verisimilitude in the science fiction novels. And I was just tired. And I was reading crime fiction at the time. And I thought, well, gee, I wonder if I can write one of those. So I sat down and I wrote a 200-page manuscript, which was imaginatively titled Mystery at the time, which eventually, when I sold my first science fiction novel, my editor said, well, what else have you got? And, you never want to say nothing in answer to that. So I scrambled around and found, Mystery on my computer, and I sent it on, and that eventually became A Cold Day for Murder, which is the first Kate Shugak novel.
And did they say, okay?
I'll tell you what, William, if I had known that 23 years, that not 23 years later, but that I would be sitting here talking to you about the 23rd book in the series, I never would have killed off Abel at the end of A Cold Day for Murder. God.
So I didn't read that book. So tell me that story. So Abel is who? Her
Abel is the spoiler alert for any Dana Maniac watching. Sorry, Abel is basically the guy who sort of watched over that Kate's grandmother relied on to watch over Kate when she kept running away from town and going back to her parents' homestead. And she had a romantic relationship with one of Abel's sons. He's the eminence grise of her childhood. And he turns out to be the perp in A Cold Day for the Murder. And he's not going to go to jail. And he takes care of that problem himself. And it wasn't until, and then I go on to write, obviously, I sell that book and two more. It's the first multi-book contract I ever had.
Wow.
And then they immediately signed me up for three more, and then signed me up for three more after that. And then I stopped and said, okay, one at a time, so I could start writing other stuff in between them. And I can't remember, I think it was in maybe the fifth Kate Shugak novel that I really really missed that eminence grise personality of Abel's, and so I basically rewrote him into the series with a different background and another name, and that was Old Sam Dementiev, who was just the loveliest character. Man, I loved him. And he died later on too, and it just about killed me too.
How did he die? Isn't that great? See, listeners, she's acting as if she had no hand in it, but in a way you didn't. In a way you didn't, did you?
If you are writing, I don't know, a lot of people ask me the same question. And it's difficult to say. I'm not afraid to let characters die. I think Stephen King is right. I think you kill your darlings. I think he's absolutely right about that. And but honestly, I don't necessarily go into any book knowing that a character is going to die. That has just never happened. It evolves naturally out of the lives of the characters. I think it's the greatest gift writing's ever given me, is to be able to do that.
Has it changed? Now, we're going to go a little deep here because that's just what I like to do. But has it changed your relationship to death itself, to the concept of it?
I don't think so. I think, age has kind of changed that.
Oh,
I turned 70. I turned 70 last year, and let me tell you, by law, you are forced to apply for Social Security when you turn 70, and that does change your perspective a little bit.
Yeah, right.
For one thing, it's the first time I've had a regular income since August of 1982.
Wow. Yes, it is a limited run. You have to embrace that. Okay, so turning 70 more than your character's dying. That's fair enough. But as I was reading your latest, Not the One's Dead, I'm going to get the title. Going to get the I was reminded again from reading from last time I read you what a role. I know you've heard this, but it's so particular for this Alaska plays, and because to some degree you have to let us know what this place is, particularly the area, because it's not just like I finally went to Alaska for the first time in September, but I went to Anchorage for a writers' conference, the Alaska Writers' Conference. And, I understand Alaska or Anchorage is near Alaska. Someone told me, they said it's 15 minutes from Alaska.
God, I from the time I graduated in high school until the time I moved back down to Homer, I mostly lived, at least off and on, in Anchorage. And Anchorage is fine. I know they have the joke that says that Anchorage is 30 miles, 30 minutes away from the rest of Alaska.
Right.
I suppose, it's a smart ass remark and you can get away with it. But Anchorage is Alaska too. God, all you have to do is just look out the window.
Well, that was the sense. And it seemed like it reminded me of a Wild West town in that, like, everybody there is like, okay, we're currently surrounded by buildings, but at any moment we might have to pick up and get our backpacks and head out into the wilderness. So it just had that, like the wilderness, it felt, I don't know if it was my imagination, but I could sense its presence.
The wilderness comes into Alaska on a regular basis too. And all you have to do is ride a bike down the bike path. You run into moose, bear, everything.
Right. And so, but your presentation of Alaska as a kind of character, I mean, it's such a cliche, but I sensed it to a large degree in your book. And it's more than just a setting. Would you say it plays a role in the mysteries themselves to some degree, the fact of where it is?
Are you talking about the geographical location?
It's the geographic and just the nature of what that place is more than just atmosphere for the story.
And no, it's absolutely, Alaska's a character in the books. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say it superficially. I'm not looking for a laugh.
Right.
Alaska definitely, and probably the main character.
Yeah.
And we have so much wide open space, so much place where people haven't settled. And it draws a certain kind of person to it, and it keeps a certain kind of person here. And that's where the stories come from, are the kinds of people that are drawn to the state of Alaska that have lived here for 10,000 years or that just came yesterday, that creates the stories that I write. More things are possible. When my mom, I grew up with a single mom, and when my mom was hired for any job, basically her main requirement was that she have a pulse, because we have a smaller population right now. I think it's only about 720,000 people.
The whole state?
Wyoming, I think, is the only state who has a smaller, maybe it's Montana, who has a smaller population than we do. And we're enormous. And, people are isolated in these little tiny villages where they don't even have a road you can get to. And some of them are so much in the interior that you can only fly in or take a snow machine and go very great distance in the wintertime. And that inculcates a certain amount of independence and capability. You have to be able to take care of yourself out in the middle of nowhere.
That's so true, because I am a city boy, have been all my life. And there's so much that I do not want to have to take care of. Can't imagine when I watch zombie apocalypse things. I'm like, just kill me, because this isn't good. I don't think I am equipped to handle that at all. But I think the Alaskans would probably do best.
Some of us would. Some of it, hey, we've got our share of dumb, just like anybody else, and you can see it every day in the headlines.
Right.
So many people have asked me often, where do you get all your ideas? I mean, everybody always asks authors that, and a trope I have.
How do you answer it?
I used to say, well, as long as people keep misbehaving on the front page of the Anchorage Daily News, I'm in business. And it's still pretty much true.
Is it pretty true? I mean, do you go through and every once in a while, because I write nonfiction, but I write a lot of essays about the same subject. But I'll just be going through my day and I go, oh, I'll be talking to my wife and I go, oh, that's an essay. Okay, boom, check. So I have a little notepad that I write down. Mm-hmm. So do you do a version of that, whereas you're thumbing through and
I have little pads and pieces of pens. I've got one next to my bed. I've got one next to every chair in the living room, obviously at my desk. I've got one in the car. I've been known to hold up traffic as I scribble something down.
Okay, so you got
the worst is when you're like right on the edge of sleep. You're all curled up. You're snuggled up in your bed. It's warm and you're just starting to doze off. But then you get an idea and you have to wake up and write it down, because if you don't, all you will remember the next day is that you had an idea. You won't remember the idea.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. I write music, and I now have my phone, so I will, if I get something, I will push that little button and I'll play it for the thing to remind myself. So, all right. 23 books in this series. We got at least a dozen in another series, or close to it, I think, right?
No, there's I think there's 5 in
only 5
the Liam Campbell novels. I'm working on the 4th Eye of Isis novels. There's 2 thrillers in the Coast Guard series.
All these books. Oh my God.
There's a trilogy set in medieval Europe. Well, China to medieval Europe. I think that's it, maybe.
All right. So
it's about 40 books anyway.
Good Lord. So you get up every day. This is what you do. Mm-hmm. Still interested? I know it pays the bills, but are you still interested?
Oh yeah, I'm still interested. I'm interested. I have sworn a mighty oath that first of all, another factor of age is that I'm going to stop writing. I'm not going to write any more cliffhangers. That it's not fair. It's not fair.
And the off chance that you might croak.
Yep, exactly.
That is so thoughtful.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I have had really, really supportive fans, and I owe them better than that.
Okay.
So I'm not going to leave them hanging. That's not going to happen. So, right. I mean, I'm not saying everything is all sweetness and light at the end of every book. That's just not me. But I'm not ever going to leave anything hanging like Bad Blood ever again, or I forget what else. A Night Too Dark, maybe, or Midnight Hunter's Moon. I won't ever do that again. There will be a sense of things being wrapped up at the end, which is actually more normal for crime fiction anyway, which I probably should have been doing all along, but I didn't. And the second thing is I'm just not going to leave anything. Well, no, that's basically it. That's it. Basically it.
Books are going to end, and the mystery will have been solved. But of course, the series are interesting.
Yes.
Right.
And,
But the interesting thing you get to do with a series is, in a way, the story doesn't end, because there is the story of Kate's life, and her relationships, and that is allowed to evolve and sort of never end in a certain way. So
his life does.
Well, of course, it's more that way. I always think of the mystery series in particular, because they're really the few that do it, where you have two narrative arcs. You have the story's narrative arc, and then you have this loose, rolling, realistic narrative arc that doesn't have to reflect the tight, packed of a novel. It's allowed to flow the way life does, and that's a nice, I think, a nice luxury to have as a novelist if you enjoy it.
I think the best thing that any writer can do is to concentrate on the ensemble cast. I mean, yes, it's important to have attractive, interesting, even appalling lead characters, you know, somebody that the reader can be interested in. But when you have a strong ensemble cast and you keep adding to it, you always have a place to go, a place to begin the narrative, a place to end it, a place on which the plot can turn. I'm trying to think. I think it was Less Than a Treason, I think, begins at Canyon Hot Springs with a young couple who have only been peripheral to one of whom started out life in a Kate Shugak short story, and then showed up with his three brothers, and all the Danny Maniacs just love the Grodidier brothers. So I mean, that was a gift from the writing gods. Thank you. And then I allowed him and his girlfriend to begin the first chapter of Less Than a Treason. That is the gift of an ensemble cast. Yeah. You know, you introduce them, you bring them along a little bit at a time, and readers are smart. They pick up on that stuff. They like that kind of stuff. They like being, I think, rewarded for paying attention. As a reader, I have to say I do.
So, yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. It reminds me of, I do enjoy a good sitcom. And I've noticed that the writers are smart. My wife's been watching a lot of reruns of Taxi, the old 70s and early 80s series, and how they will rotate, even though they have this sort of they will rotate the story from character to character because they're all fleshed out enough. They can handle a narrative arc for that certain story. And so, that is very interesting. But of course, when you with the example of that young couple, did you talk to me about the decision to let them be the lead into the story? Did you just think, I need somebody, or did you think they're kind of interesting? Did it come from your interest in them, or they just fit the story?
I wanted to know, and I wanted, the plot had to start when and where it did. And the question was, okay, who's there to see it? Because somebody has to be, somebody has to be there to be a witness to the action, to be able to report back to Kate.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I can't begin to tell you why I decided on Laurel and God, what's his name? One of the oldest, Matt Grodidier. But it was New Year's Eve, and it was natural for young lovers in the park to ask Kate's permission to go up and stay at Canyon Hot Springs in the cabin that she had built that was on property that old Sam had left to her, who was the guy who died at the end of A Night Too Dark, and who sent her on a scavenger hunt in Though Not Dead. It was natural. It was the way the characters had evolved to that point. I mean, they're getting to the point where they're serious about each other, and it's not just, of fun and giggles at this point. And that was another thing that I really liked, that I was really proud of, is by the end of that first chapter, their relationship has evolved to the point, just in that one chapter, that they know they're going to spend the rest of their lives together. They don't say it, but you can infer it from the text.
But you didn't know that until you wrote it, did you?
Nope, I did not.
You see, that's how it works. That's how it works. So I coach my fiction writers. I'm like, look, you've got the right answer when you didn't know the answer till you got it. I mean, I don't know how much of a, there are mystery writers who start with, I'm sure because you probably are in that community of I have a dead body. I don't know who killed them, but I got a body, and I'll find out by the end of the book who killed it. And then you've got other ones who are like, I know who killed it and why, and I don't know where you stand on that spectrum.
Mostly, God, it just depends. It's
really?
Different things for different books. Generally, only generally, William, will I say this. I do know who did it, and that's only when I made that decision one time, and about halfway through the book, I realized, he didn't do it after all. And then I had to figure out who did.
Well, that's different, Dana, because usually it's one or the other. Usually it's like you don't, but so clearly you leave a lot of room for inspiration either way. Yeah. I say in the whole writing process, the thing that has come, I mean, I like the craft of writing. I find it, it's interesting to me. So that's what I like to do. But the thing that continues to intrigue me and draws me back to these conversations is inspiration. What that magical quality of the idea that arrives, asked for, but we don't have control over. The thing that came that we discovered, has brought that to me feels like the closest thing to a spiritual experience in the writing because I'm just there. Glad it came along. Yeah.
I refer to it as the muse knocking at the door.
Absolutely.
If she knocks, you get up and answer.
You answer.
I mean, I don't know how to put any, and that may sound precious. I don't mean it to. It's actually more or less the literal truth.
That's the only.
Pay attention. You have to pay attention. That's.
Amen. Because the muse, whatever language you want for it, it is the only practical language. And people who think writers sound pretentious, we don't want to, but there's no other way to describe what. Also, if you want that muse to keep talking, and you do want her to, you better not take credit. I think in your mind, because in a way it kind of shuts the door if you think I did that, right?
Smart. Have you ever gone back and reread stuff that you've written and wondered to yourself, who wrote that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
If you have the fortune, if the muse smiles upon you and you have the good fortune to write something good, mostly what you should feel is humility.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad I always say that my job is to be in the frame of mind that allows writing to occur. Like that's my job, to get in that receptive, relaxed, humble, appreciative, that's my main role. The rest is up to whatever, And fiction, I think even more, because I don't do fiction anymore, but even more so for the fiction writer who really, is starting from, you don't start from zero because you have characters in a world, but the story, and, that's zero, right?
Yeah.
At the start.
Always, every time.
Yeah. So you're still interested. Look at you, get so excited. You may not be able to see her, folks. You get all excited talking about her characters. It's great. Isn't that great? Are you a little appreciative? I think you probably are, of what you get to do, of what people pay you to do.
Oh God, I'm so lucky. I'm just so lucky. I'm the luckiest person on the planet.
Yeah.
I often feel like that. I don't really know why it happened to me. I don't know that I've been such a good person that I should be gifted with this and somebody else shouldn't. Yeah, it's I'm just grateful. God, I'm grateful every day.
That's so awesome, because I don't think there's anything better than being able to do what you love to do. Because every writer I know would do it for free and did. And
we all have done it for free.
We all did it for free. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I made a decision at a certain point in my life. So I'm only going to do what I would do for free from now. I'm done with the other. And so everything I do now, I would, whether it's talking or even coaching, I would do that for free either way, because I just love talking to people. And I think it's a great modus operandi, that you feel you lucked into. But
if you can do it and support yourself, then absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. It's good.
Of all possible worlds.
There's nobody better you want helping you, whether it's a doctor or a mechanic or who loves what they're doing. Those are the people you want to work with, whatever they're doing, right? And writers have to love what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Well, Dana, it's so great. You're an inspiration.
Thank you.
No, but look at you. You've been doing this a long time. People can burn out. People can get cranky and can get repetitive and can start imitating. Because I always say I can imitate what I sound like when I'm actually inspired, but it's not the same. It's not the same, right?
Yeah.
And you're clearly still so interested. That is awesome. The well is deep. The well is deep. All right. And so this book's been out for a little while, but it's available where all fine books are sold. But I'm not quite done with you, Dana. I'm curious. I asked you this question once. I don't remember your answer. What? So we'll ask it again and see what happens. Okay. I want you to think about all the writing you've done, all the 40 books you've written. And if writing has taught you anything, it's taught you what?
Perseverance.
Yeah.
You can't give up. And that, I'm very task oriented. And I may have been task oriented before I was a writer, but I'm very, very task oriented now. I mean, in little things that I do every day and in books that I write, because my whole thrust in life is to finish this book and start the next one. And you can apply that kind of perseverance into finishing tasks. Sounds so mediocre, William. But you can apply that to the life that you live. You can apply it to friendships, to relationships, to family, to friends, to politics, to anything that you wanted to. Okay, what is it I want? You can define the task. What is it that I want to get done here? And how much time am I going to give myself to get it done? And if I don't get it done, what do I do then? It's, I don't know, maybe perseverance isn't exactly the right
No,
word
it's
for.
no, it's
But
good. It does.
you don't give up. You don't
Yeah.
give up. You just don't give up.